They were once full of life, laughter echoing through the halls, footsteps on tiled floors, prayers whispered in empty rooms. Now, all that remains are shadows. From a decaying hospital where the dead still scream, to a derelict orphanage haunted by forgotten children, to a crumbling school where lessons never ended. Each building hides a past soaked in pain and mystery. Every door creaks open to reveal another secret that should have stayed buried. Step inside, but remember, once you enter these places, you're never truly alone again. The night I decided to explore the old industrial building on Crane Street, the sky was heavy with thunder. Everyone in town said the place was haunted, that people who went inside never came out the same. But as a photographer chasing urban legends, I couldn't resist. The building was enormous, with broken windows and walls covered in black mold. The gate hung crookedly, squeaking in the wind as if warning me to go back. I tightened my grip on the camera and stepped through. My flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, catching graffiti that read, "Don't look at the windows." I laughed nervously. Teenagers must have painted that. Still, something about those words made me shiver. The air inside was thick and smelled of rust and decay. The deeper I went, the quieter it got. Not even rats made a sound. I started taking pictures. Peeling paint, rusted pipes, shadows stretching like claws across the walls. But when I reviewed my shots, something strange appeared in every frame. Faint silhouettes near the windows, like someone standing just out of sight. I turned toward the window, but no one was there. The rain tapped lightly on the cracked glass. I moved on to the main hall, where an old factory line stood frozen in time. Metal parts lay scattered everywhere, and a dusty clock on the wall had stopped at 3:12. My footsteps echoed as I explored, but suddenly I heard another pair. Soft, dragging steps following behind me. "Hello?" I called out. No reply. I turned around. Nothing. The flashlight flickered, and for a split second, I saw a shadow move between the columns. My breath caught. Maybe another explorer? Or maybe someone who never left. I decided to head upstairs. The stairway was steep and half collapsed, but I made it to the second floor. The air was colder there. Doors lined the hallway, all shut except one that creaked open slowly as if waiting for me. I walked toward it, my heart pounding. Inside was a small office, a desk, a broken chair, and a cracked mirror on the wall. Papers were scattered across the floor, all stamped with the same words. "We are still here." I crouched to pick one up. It was damp, smelling of mildew. That's when I noticed movement in the mirror behind me. I froze. Slowly I raised my eyes. A pale woman stood reflected in the mirror, though the room behind me was empty. Her eyes were hollow, black pits. Her mouth hung open as if silently screaming. I spun around. No one. When I looked back at the mirror, it was cracked all the way down the middle. But the woman was closer now, her face pressed against the glass from the inside. I dropped my camera and bolted. My footsteps thundered down the hallway, but the dragging sound followed, faster this time, echoing from every direction. "Stop!" I yelled, though I didn't know who I was talking to. I ran into a large storage room and slammed the door shut behind me. The room was pitch black except for the thin beam of my dying flashlight. I leaned against the wall, panting. The footsteps stopped outside. Silence. Then slowly the doorknob began to turn. Click, click, click. I pressed my back harder against the door, holding my breath. The knob stopped. I waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then, a whisper right next to my ear. "You looked at the windows." I screamed and ran through the other side of the room, bursting into a corridor filled with broken glass. My flashlight finally died, leaving me in complete darkness. But the windows, they started to glow faintly. Shapes appeared in them. Faces. Dozens of pale, silent faces staring from every pane. Some pressed their hands against the glass. Others smiled with cracked lips. I stumbled backward and tripped over something. A pile of old photographs scattered across the floor. I picked one up. My heart nearly stopped. It was a picture of me, standing right where I was now. The same corridor, the same clothes, even the same terrified expression. More photos lay around me, each showing me in different parts of the building I hadn't even reached yet. The last photo showed me standing at the exit, looking relieved, and behind me, the pale woman, smiling. I didn't wait to see more. I ran through the hallways, crashing into walls and debris until I saw the faint outline of the door I came through. I threw it open and stumbled into the stormy night. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. Rain poured down, soaking me, but I didn't care. I looked up at the building one last time. Every single window was now lit from inside, glowing dimly. And in each one, a shadow stood watching. I started the engine and sped away. When I got home, I threw the camera onto the table. The photos were still inside. My hands trembled as I turned it on. The last image made my blood run cold. It wasn't the photo of the building. It was me, sitting in my car, staring at the camera. And behind me, through the rear window, that same pale woman was smiling. The abandoned St. Mary's Hospital sat at the edge of town, half swallowed by weeds and silence. No one went there anymore, not since the fire 20 years ago. They said the spirits of the patients still roamed its halls, searching for help that never came. But I didn't believe in ghosts. I was a journalist, chasing stories that people were too afraid to write about. My assignment was simple: capture photos and write a piece about the town's haunted landmarks. St. Mary's was the last one on the list. I arrived just after sunset. The front doors were boarded up, but there was a gap big enough for me to slip through. The moment I stepped inside, the air changed. It smelled like burnt chemicals and old blood. My flashlight flickered across the long corridor. Wheelchairs rusted in place, beds overturned, walls blackened by fire. Each step I took echoed through the emptiness. I started recording on my phone. "Inside St. Mary's Hospital," I whispered. "Abandoned since 2005. They say screams can still be heard at night." The wind howled through broken windows, but beneath that, I heard something else. A faint shuffle, like soft feet dragging on the floor. I froze. My light swung toward the sound, but there was nothing there. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I forced a laugh and moved on, trying to ignore the goosebumps spreading down my arms. The walls were covered in faded patient charts. Some still had photos, burned faces, bandaged eyes. One paper caught my attention. It read, "Ward 7, Isolation Unit, do not reopen." Curiosity pulled me toward the stairwell. The steps groaned under my weight as I climbed to the second floor. It was darker there, colder too. My flashlight's beam fell on a sign hanging crookedly on the wall. "Ward 7. My heart skipped. The double doors were chained shut, but the padlock had melted from the fire. With one hard push, the doors creaked open. Inside was a long, narrow hallway filled with burnt hospital beds and cracked tiles. The smell was worse there, something between rot and smoke. I walked slowly, recording everything. Halfway down the hall, I heard a whisper. It came from one of the rooms. "Help me." My breath caught. It was faint, a woman's voice, weak and trembling. I shone my light into the nearest room. Empty. Another whisper came, closer now. "Please don't leave me here." The door at the end of the hallway creaked open by itself. I swallowed hard and stepped forward. The room inside was dark, except for a single hospital bed still standing. A burned patient file lay on the floor beside it. The name was barely readable. Patient, Evelyn Grace, died 3:17 a.m. Cause, asphyxiation. Suddenly the bed frame rattled violently. My flashlight flickered and went out. I smacked it against my palm until the light returned. And when it did, I screamed. A woman sat on the bed. Her hospital gown was torn and blackened, skin blistered as if burned alive. Her eyes were pale and empty. She looked straight at me and whispered, "You shouldn't be here." I stumbled backward, tripping over the debris. My phone slipped from my hand. I grabbed it and ran, but every hallway looked the same. The building groaned around me as if it were alive. The exit signs flickered, leading in different directions. Then I saw movement, shadows crossing the hall ahead. I stopped, holding my breath. Wheelchairs began rolling on their own. The air filled with whispers. Dozens of voices crying, coughing, pleading for help. I covered my ears, but the voices grew louder until they became screams. My light caught figures crawling across the floor. Burned patients dragging themselves toward me. Their faces melted, their eyes hollow. "Get out!" one screamed. "Get out before she sees you!" I turned and ran down another hall, heart racing so fast I thought I would pass out. I finally saw the stairwell and sprinted toward it. But standing at the top of the stairs was Evelyn. She looked different now, taller, her head tilted, skin dripping black ash. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "You came to see us," she whispered. "Now stay." I bolted down the stairs, nearly falling as I reached the main floor. The exit door was ahead, but when I pulled it open, it wasn't outside. It was another hallway, Ward 7 again. I screamed and ran the other way, pushing through door after door until I burst into a small room with shattered windows. I leaned against the wall, gasping for air. The room was filled with old medical photos, rows of patients, nurses, and doctors. Then I noticed something that froze my blood. In the last photo, taken before the fire, a journalist was standing among them. The man looked exactly like me. Behind him was Evelyn, smiling. My hands shook. The photo fell from my grip. I turned slowly toward the window and saw her reflection standing right behind me, smiling the same way. I didn't scream this time. I just closed my eyes. When the rescue team found my phone the next morning, it was still recording. The last thing captured was a woman's voice whispering, "Ward 7 is open again." The Hollow Creek orphanage had been empty for 30 years. People said it was cursed, that the laughter of dead children still echoed through its halls. When I first saw the building, it looked like something out of a nightmare. The windows were cracked, the doors half rotten, and the playground behind it was covered in weeds. A single swing still hung there, creaking softly in the wind. I was only supposed to take a few pictures for a local magazine, but curiosity made me step inside. The air was cold and heavy. My flashlight barely cut through the darkness as I moved down the main hall. Dust floated everywhere like ashes. Children's drawings still hung on the walls. Smiling suns, stick figures, and colorful houses. But one drawing made me stop. It showed a group of children holding hands around a dark pit. Above it, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "We play with her." A chill ran down my spine. I moved deeper inside, stepping over old toys and broken beds. The smell of mildew filled the air. Somewhere upstairs I thought I heard footsteps, light, quick ones, like children running. "Hello?" I called out, but only my voice echoed back. As I turned the corner, something rolled across the floor. A small red ball. It stopped right at my feet. My heart pounded. There was no wind, no movement, yet the ball had come from the darkness ahead. I picked it up slowly. The moment I did, soft giggling echoed through the hall. I dropped the ball. It rolled back into the shadows. I wanted to leave, but something drew me toward the stairs. On the second floor, I found the nursery, rows of tiny beds covered in dust. In the center stood a rocking chair, swaying gently even though the air was still. And then I saw them, small pale faces peeking from behind the beds. One by one they stepped out, children dressed in old clothes, eyes completely black. Their mouths moved, but no sound came. I backed away, whispering, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to come here." The smallest one, a girl with braids, tilted her head. She whispered softly, her voice like wind through broken glass. "Will you play with us?" I turned to run, but the door slammed shut. The lights flickered, and when they came back on, the room was empty, except for the drawings. Every wall was now covered in new crayon drawings, of me, standing among the children, smiling. When I finally escaped the building, dawn was breaking. The orphanage looked silent again. But as I reached my car, I heard the faint sound of laughter and saw the same little red ball roll out from the front door. The old Maplewood High had been abandoned for over 15 years. No one went near it, not after the fire that took the lives of students during the final graduation rehearsal. But one night, curiosity pulled me there. I was a documentary student, making a film about forgotten places. Everyone in town warned me about Maplewood. They said you could still hear the school bell ringing at midnight, followed by voices, the voices of the students who never left. When I arrived, fog covered the school grounds. The building stood in silence, its tall windows cracked like shattered eyes. My flashlight flickered as I walked toward the entrance. The doors groaned when I pushed them open, echoing through the empty halls. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Old paper, wet wood, and something faintly metallic, like dried blood. Desks were scattered across the floor, books soaked in mold, and the blackboard still had chalk writing. "Remember to smile for graduation." My footsteps echoed down the corridor. Every sound felt too loud, like the school itself was listening. I lifted my camera and began recording. "Maplewood High," I whispered. "Abandoned since 2009. Locals claim it's haunted by..." I stopped. From somewhere above I heard faint footsteps, slow, careful. I froze and aimed the flashlight upward. The sound stopped. I told myself it was just the wind, but the air was still. I continued to the main hallway where faded photos lined the walls. Smiling students, teachers, and class awards. I stopped when I saw one photo frame cracked open. Inside, one student's face had been scratched out completely, leaving only deep knife marks where her eyes once were. Then, from behind me, a locker door slammed shut. The sound made me jump. I swung my light around, breathing hard. The hallway was empty. Dust hung in the air. But then a soft whisper came from inside the locker. A girl's voice. "Help me." I slowly reached for the handle. The metal was ice cold. I pulled it open and gasped. Inside was a burned school uniform hanging neatly, and pinned to it was a name tag that read, Emily Hart. Underneath it, in black marker, someone had written, "She never made it out." My hands shook as I stepped back. That's when the classroom door behind me creaked open by itself. I turned the camera toward it and whispered, "Hello? Is someone here?" Inside the room, rows of dusty desks faced a broken blackboard. A faint melody filled the air, a music box tune. On one of the desks sat a small music box still spinning on its own. The tune was haunting, cheerful but wrong, like something meant for a funeral. Then I noticed something else. Desks began to move slightly, one after another, creaking across the floor as if invisible hands were pushing them. And in the faint light from the window, I saw faint outlines, silhouettes of students sitting at the desks, unmoving. "Please," I whispered, "what do you want?" The chalk on the board started moving by itself, slowly spelling out, "Stay and learn." The classroom door slammed shut. My camera fell from my hands as the light flickered. I heard footsteps all around me, hundreds of them, circling the room. Whispers filled the air. "Where's Emily? She was late again. She missed the fire drill. She burned with us." I turned toward the window, and there she was. A girl in a half-burned school uniform, her hair singed, her skin pale gray. Emily Hart. Her eyes were hollow, her mouth twisted into a sorrowful smile. "You came back," she whispered. "You shouldn't have." I stumbled backward, tripping over a chair. The classroom lights flickered wildly. Emily's burned hand reached toward me, and the whispering voices turned into screams. "Join us!" I ran. The hallway stretched endlessly. Every door I passed slammed shut. My own reflection appeared in the windows, but in every reflection, I wasn't alone. Dozens of burned faces stared from behind me. I burst through the main doors and fell to the ground outside. The night air hit me like a wave. I scrambled to my car, gasping for breath, refusing to look back. When I finally dared to glance in the rearview mirror, the school windows were glowing faintly. Every window filled with silhouettes of students watching me leave. And then, through the night air, I heard the sound of a bell. Ding, ding, ding. The graduation bell, followed by soft, synchronized voices whispering, "You forgot to smile for graduation."